Today's guest is JJ Virgin. JJ is a celebrity nutritionist and fitness expert, as well as a four-time New York Times bestselling author of books including The Virgin Diet and The Sugar Impact Diet. Welcome, JJ. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You say that we've been talking about sugar in all the wrong way. How is that?
It was so interesting. When I wrote The Virgin Diet, it was really all about food intolerance. And so I looked at the foods that I saw in food sensitivity testing and elimination diets that were always showing up. And I pulled those out, and there were 6 of them. But then I couldn't really write a health program and not deal with sugar. So I added sugar as the 7th, right? Because as we know, it can cause leaky gut and all sorts of issues with your gut microbiome. Well, so I put this in, but the biggest question I got asked about during that whole time was about sugar. And I was looking at this, and they were either totally confused by it or controlled by it or both. And I knew that I really had to tackle it. And as I started doing the deep dive into sugar, I realized that we've really been looking at this all wrong. And, it's not about no sugar. It's really understanding which ones you want to choose and which ones you want to lose. And if you look at sugar, we have to kind of extend that category out to carbohydrates, because the bottom line is all carbohydrates except for fiber, the minute you start to eat them, start being broken down into sugar. So it's really about how quickly something is turning into sugar in your body. Are you mainlining it, or are you making it slowly so that you have a nice steady supply of sugar? Because that's what we really want is steady supply and great even blood sugar. I mean, that's the ultimate situation that has nice energy, no brain fog, you're able to lose weight, right?
Absolutely. Feel good. So being that all carbs eventually turn into sugar, why don't you just kind of walk us through the different types of sugars and maybe the ones that might be okay for us and which ones are not?
All right. So when I was looking at all of this, it's really about, we all talk about in functional medicine that food is information. And so sugar is information. And what we want to make sure is that as we're feeding these to our body, because this is not about no sugar, that we're telling our body to burn body fat, to especially belly body fat, and to have great, steady, sustained energy, and to slow down the aging process. As we know, sugar is like the most aging thing. Sugar plus stress equals rapid aging. And just to have this great focus and energy. And so I looked and I went, we've had this model for looking at sugar that's really been a setup to fail. It started out good. And, we always have to start somewhere. But we have the model that we're still using, which is super archaic. And that's the model of the glycemic index. And that's where you look at a 50-gram dose of a food and how much someone's blood sugar responds to that dose. A normal, healthy person, if we can actually even find them anymore. And the challenge is that we don't eat food that way, right? I mean, no one's going to sit down and have 50 grams of celery. So you've got to look at the actual load of that food. And of course, we also don't eat foods in isolation. But the biggest challenge with the glycemic index, besides not taking the amount of food into account, is also that it makes the worst sugar of all, fructose, look like a saint. Because, all sugars that we eat are going to be broken down into one of two: glucose, which is going to give us fuel, or fructose, which basically gives us fat. Because fructose, the only organ that can metabolize it is the liver. It's going to go straight to the liver. And the worst part is, the more fructose you eat, actually, the better you get at doing this. It goes straight to the liver, where if there was any space, it would move to glucose and then get stored as glycogen or stored energy. But challenge is the liver is not a big area and there's not a lot of space for glycogen. So once that little slot's full, it starts getting turned into fat. And the worst part about this is that because it just went straight to the liver, it didn't raise blood sugar. So it didn't trigger insulin, leptin, ghrelin. It didn't trigger any of the satiety signals along the way. Couple other issues with fructose is that can actually make the small intestine more permeable, leading to food intolerance, and it's more aging than any other sugar. It does something called glycation. So this is like the crust on bread. So it's more aging than any other sugar. It's sweeter, and as we know, when you eat sweet, what do you want?
More sweets.
More sweet. That's why artificial sweeteners are such a disaster, so there's just nothing good about it. And somewhere along the line, we got this idea that fruit was a free food. Like, I don't know where this one came from. Maybe it was during the big fat-free craze. We're like, oh, it's got no fat in it. But the challenge is if you eat more than a little bit of fruit, your fruit makes you store fat. Now, the reason you have to look at sugar differently is there's obviously a difference between a rainbow of fruit and a rainbow of Skittles, right? So you have to look at not only how much, what the big glycemic load is, how much is this raising your blood sugar and insulin. You also have to look at fructose, but you offset that with fiber and nutrient density. And that's why an apple is very different than apple juice, or, a raisin's very different than, say, fresh grapes. In the case of dried fruit, you've just concentrated that sugar and turned it into candy. In the case of juice, you've just pulled out the fiber, had a big load of it, and turned it into a soda. So we've got to look at all of those factors. And that's why I say it's not about losing these things. It's really knowing where on the sugar impact scales, something that's got a lot of fructose, high glycemic load, no fiber, and really no nutrients is going to be high sugar impact, but something that's got a lot of fiber, a lot of nutrient density, even if it has some sugar and fructose in it, say berries, are going to be low on the sugar impact scale.
So we're talking about, fructose from fruit, but there's also high fructose corn syrup in many processed foods and other forms of fructose.
Here's the thing. If we were only getting it from a couple pieces of fruit a day, it would be great. But that was just the start. Then they took high fructose corn syrup, out of corn, and they started putting it into everything. But the worst one now, I think the worst place, because this is where sugar is sneaking in and wreaking all the havoc, is when you have foods posing as health foods.
Yes.
Right? So it's all of these like gluten-free foods and vegan foods where they've used agave.
Yes.
And agave got the initial hall pass because agave is 90+% fructose, so it looks like it's great. But the challenge is, again, it doesn't raise blood sugar; it goes straight to the liver. So they started using it in all of those health foods because it's supposedly safe for diabetics, just like the artificial sweeteners. And of course, now we know differently. But I still see it everywhere. It's like it takes a while for people to catch on that this is a bad thing. They know about high fructose corn syrup, but agave is actually way worse for you than that is.
And what about some of the other syrups, where you see like malt, barley syrup and things that again are in these health foods that are supposed to be not sugar. I mean, maybe we should even talk about, kind of all the names that sugar is but isn't, right?
Right, like syrup. Come on, if it's glazed, it's sugar. If it's syrup, it's sugar. Yeah, that's been the big thing because I had people, and this again was why I said, okay, I've got to tackle this because people go, but it's honey, it's all natural. I go, but every sugar is natural except for the artificial ones, which are artificial.
Right.
But the rest of them are all natural. And the minute you start eating them, they're all the same. Once you start eating them, they're all the same to your body. So that is a big challenge. Is we look at all of those things and we go, all right, but this is okay. Like, look at apple juice concentrate. This is the one that makes me the craziest because you can actually put it on a label as no sugar added.
That's crazy.
Right. That's so awful. So a mom trying to do the best thing for her kid goes and gets a product that says no sugar added. And it's got apple juice concentrate, which is one of the biggest hits. Apples are the highest fructose fruit there is. So you just got a big fructose hit with that. That was worse for you than high fructose corn syrup. We're not eating sugar, sitting down eating sugar cubes, but we're buying the fat-free raspberry vinaigrette. We're ordering the salad out that's got the glazed nuts and the dried fruit. We're getting all of the stuff that we think is healthy, and there's sugar all over it. And the more sweet you eat, the more sweet you want. You dull your taste buds, like you're at a rock concert and you dull your hearing.
Well, real sugar is probably going to make a comeback, sort of like butter. I'm not suggesting that real sugar is a health food like maybe butter could be for some people or ghee, but it's in its real pure form, right? I mean, having a little bit of...
Hey, there's no question. Yeah. Like, what should you choose? There is no question that artificial sweeteners are worse than sugar. No question. I mean, those are the worst of the worst, and I cannot believe they still prevail. And when I see them in children's foods, that makes me especially crazy.
What is your feeling on, I was a Peace Corps volunteer and lived in Paraguay, and we grew and exported stevia. I mean, I'm obviously there are all these studies that if you think you're getting something sweet and then it doesn't and things can wreak havoc on your hormones, but at least it's a natural one. I mean, do you use that at all in even some moderation?
Oh, yeah, yeah. One of the things I think we've got to get back to is appreciating the natural sweetness, of cinnamon and vanilla and berries and sweet potato. But let's face it, you can't take someone who's been using all of these things, who's been having artificial sweeteners and been, eating these salad dressings. Gosh, some of these salad dressings and marinara sauces have more sugar in them than syrups do. It's crazy.
It's like make your own.
Yeah, just make your own and save some cash. But, so you need to do a tapering. And honestly, I'm a big fan of stevia and monk fruit and erythritol. So, and glycine. Glycine's a nice little sweet amino acid. So I'm a fan of those, and especially of stevia and monk fruit because they've actually got health benefits. But I think we need to use all of those with caution because the more sweet you eat, the more you want. It just kind of wakes you up again. You really have to also learn here, and that's where I believe we need to go through our own personal discovery process to see where do we need to live on the sugar impact scales, how much can we eat and still feel good and not have to worry about our weight or our energy or our focus or joint pain, and what things for you are triggers. Because if you know that, ice cream is a trigger food for you, there's this great 1 gram of sugar coconut ice cream, but if you eat the whole pint, it's like healthy foods, too much of them becomes unhealthy. So you still have to watch them.
Yes. I'm definitely one of those. If I don't eat it, I'm fine. But once I eat it, particularly if it's like a gluten-free cookie or cake, it's like I want the whole thing. So I'm better off just like dark chocolate and not even looking at
But
it.
you do need to know your triggers, and I know which ones are mine, and I don't ever bring the enemy into the house because it's just mean.
Right, right. Yeah, it's just tempting
Yeah.
fate. Like, so do you think that, all fruits are bad or some berries in moderation or berries when you're adding it with protein and additional fiber?
I have a period in my program where I take fructose down to 0 because I want people to really get their sweet taste back and to get bad at transporting fructose again. So one of the things you don't want to do is teach your body to be a super good fructose transporter so that you can get it to the liver and make fat. That's not something we ever want to be good at. But I think fruit definitely has a role in the body. I just think we need to move away from this idea that fruit is free food. And fruit is not, obviously all fruit's not created equally. So when I was putting the sugar impact diet together, I went through and looked at grams, fiber grams, and fructose grams, and sugar grams, and carbohydrate grams, and there wasn't enough with this insulin index to really do that. And then glycemic load, it was a nightmare. It was like this charts all over the place of this. And here's what I can tell you is kind of the quick and dirty. Juice and dried fruit are out. They're out. And you have to be super aware of these green juices because so many of the green juices are actually just fruit juice. Like there is one green juice out there called the Green Machine. It's 44 grams of sugar and
Oh my God, yeah.
yes.
You can't even pick up because we were caught in a situation out of town and just trying to find something healthy. And my husband and I are just the back of every single one of them. I mean, you can't even.
No, all of them.
You just put them right back.
Isn't it amazing? Amazing. 44 grams of sugar. That's more sugar than a soda has it. And the problem is people are drinking those. They're making an effort to drink them because they think they're good for them. So you have to be
Right.
super careful.
Yeah. So they might have 2 of those a day and replace a real meal with that, all sugar.
Right. Or you have to look at these, a lot of these smoothies out where they throw this stuff in. So, that's a big one is dried fruit.
And a lot of dried fruit is not only the dried fruit, but if you
And
look at
sugar
these
too.
yeah, cranberries and stuff, dried cranberries.
I think if we just think of dried fruit like candy and juice like soda, they're just all that stuff is out. So those are all high sugar impact. And honestly, if you were going to have a real sweet, wouldn't you rather have a piece of dark chocolate than some jam?
Or even a cupcake at that level, right?
Exactly. If you're gonna go have something, yeah, don't waste it on like a piece of toast with some jam. What a waste. So it really comes down to what's lowest sugar impact and what's medium. And so it's really about things that have the most fiber and the best nutrient density and the lowest fructose. So yeah, berries, obviously they are the best of all. And then, what are medium? Well, the tropical fruits, the things you would expect, but also apples and pears because they're higher in fructose. So pineapples and mangoes and bananas those are the ones that tend to be higher, so I put those as medium sugar. Doesn't mean you can't have them, but I think 1 or 2 servings of fruit a day and you're always better off with berries.
And I imagine you're a fan of putting that like in a protein shake or.
I'm a big fan of protein shakes because what I see is so many people start the day with dessert. And, the minute you start the day with that muffin and the latte, take the icing off a cupcake. It is a muffin. The minute you do that, you've got yourself on a blood sugar roller coaster that's so hard to get off. And if you have any kind of thyroid issues, then you're going to have problems with glucose uptake. So now you've got, glucose sitting around. It can't be absorbed. You've got more insulin problems. And so it's just a bad way to start. So I find it's been the cornerstone of all of my programs and something I've done now for 25 years is I have started the day with a protein shake. And it's, I think, the simplest way to make sure that you're getting good, clean protein. Because if you look at it, what's your trifecta you should always have? Protein, fat, and fiber. Get a protein powder, coconut or almond milk, some berries. You're covered there. And I throw in avocado every day too. I love avocado, lots of fiber, good fats, makes it like boost. So.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, so you hinted on, let's kind of dive in a little bit deeper about what impact does all of this sugar have on somebody who's suffering with thyroid dysfunction?
When you have thyroid dysfunction that your body, you can eat some sugar and then it just sits there. Your body can't absorb it as quickly, can't uptake it. So it's like it's there, but it can't use it, can't get it into the cells. And then the insulin response is slower, and then your body can't get rid of the insulin as quickly. So now you've got insulin around, and if insulin's around, then you can't use stored fat for fuel. It's like your body can't hear the sugar. So now you've got insulin up, which means you can't use stored fat for fuel, but you're hungry, which is not where you want to be. So it's really problematic. I mean, this is one of the most difficult things for you to do if you have any kind of thyroid dysfunction is to eat too much sugar. I really believe that the most important thing we can do, whether it's looking at what we have for food intolerance or looking at where we should be on sugar impact, is you've got to go through your own personal discovery process. I mean, we can make a blanket statement of, hey, we should be eating, when in that 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables that the USDA recommends, they shouldn't all be fruit. And probably it should be 10 servings of vegetables and 1 or 2 servings of fruit, let's be honest. But, in the blanket statement would be the lower you can be in sugar impact. That means instead of having, say, white pasta, you switch down to rice pasta, and even better than that, you would switch down to spaghetti squash. And instead of having a whole wheat tortilla, you'd have a coconut tortilla. Anywhere you can dial down that impact is going to be better for you, because sugar sitting around that can't get used by your cells is toxic.
And that's, imagining mostly for somebody who has a lower or hypothyroid dysfunction. So somebody with hyper might be able to use that and burn through it more, but it's really going to be jacking up your cortisol levels, which already are going to be so jacked up if you're somebody, who's suffering from Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism.
And you just look at it and it all like you start to see every system start to get impacted here. It's like, okay, so your body can't absorb the sugar, and then you're going to have issues with insulin, and then this is stressful to your body. So then you have issues with they all just, well, then the cortisol plays back on the thyroid, and then it's just, so it's, to me, I look at any of these types of things, and the fastest way you can start healing any of this is by changing what's at the end of your fork. And it doesn't have to be a dramatic 180-degree shift. What I like to do first is start with the awareness of where all the sugar is sneaking in. Because again, it's not that we're putting sugar in our coffee. It is that they took that green drink and went, I had a green drink today. Yay for me, right? Pat on the back.
Or they put in the creamer for their coffee that is, hazelnut flavored with all the, high fructose corn syrup, or even if you're getting the healthy coconut one that has some other brown rice syrup or something in it.
Yeah, they all do. The healthy ones, the biggest danger we have is someone deciding they're going to be healthy and walking into Whole Foods, because Whole Foods has a lot of great stuff, but it's not all going to be great.
It's free of certain toxins, but then it has a whole nother level of them, right? So now it's organic brown rice syrup instead of high fructose corn syrup. So yes, you've gotten the GMO corn out of there, but now you have an organic product that for the most part is going to do the same thing to your body.
Exactly. your body is still going, oh, sugar's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line. Sugar's coming in. So it's really the biggest thing that you can do is use a food journal. I think a food journal is the best secret weapon anyone can ever do, because if you feel crappy, you look back and go, what the heck just happened here? And it's in the food journal. Use a food journal and start to look at all the places sugar is sneaking in. So read those labels, which is a pain the first couple times you go to the store, and then you get your eyes opened and it's just crazy.
Or better yet, buy things that don't require a label.
Exactly, even better. But some of these things that don't have a label would appear to be okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're okay.
It doesn't mean go buy the pineapple and eat the whole pineapple.
Yes, which in the old fat-free days, I did all that stuff. It was so crazy to be in my 20s and to be 10% higher in body fat working out 2 hours a day. The biggest challenge is becoming super aware of these things. And that's my biggest concern, is not the added sugar. I mean, we have this whole campaign against added sugar, but a lot of it's just things where you wouldn't consider, like the fruit juice concentrate, the juice, the dried fruit. Because again, most people, it's not, oh my gosh, I just ate 12 bananas.
Well, how can somebody who's dealing, who's on this gerbil wheel, that is on this cycle of eating and craving more? I mean, how do you get them off? I mean, how do you stop that madness and those cravings and get somebody off of everything?
I think that, and it was super clear when I started to do the research for this book, and I became obsessed with it. And the biggest thing that I saw, and here's where I think we're doing it all wrong, and this is the major opportunity, is this isn't about going cold turkey. When you've trained your body to use sugar as fuel, to be a sugar burner rather than a fat burner, and if you have thyroid disorder, you're a sugar burner, not a fat burner, just by nature. It's part of what happens when you become hypothyroid. You need to eat every couple of hours. And so here's the sign. How do I know if I'm a sugar burner or a fat burner? If you carry weight around your waist, and even when you lose weight, you don't lose your waist. And if you need to eat every couple hours, or otherwise you get crabby or hungry or tired, you're a sugar burner. A fat burner can go 4 to 6 hours before they need to eat again. They easily lose weight off their waist. In fact, weight loss is effortless, and they don't diet for a hobby anymore. Now, if you take someone who's now trained their body to rely on a hit of sugar every couple hours and say, all right, here's what we're doing. We're going to take that down really low and we're going to switch over to this, they will crash. You cannot do this, and especially you can't do it with women. I know there's a lot of information out now with intermittent fasting. I do not believe women should skip breakfast at all. I do believe in the 12 to 14 hour overnight fast. This isn't no carbs and no sugar, and that's what we tend to do. Okay, just like with the fat-free movement, we'll just take all the fat out. Fat's bad, we'll take it out. And then it's like carbs are bad, we'll take them out. Especially women, if you put someone like, and we're not talking to someone who's got seizures or cancer or something where this could be a therapeutic diet. But the average person, especially someone with any kind of adrenal issues, which is most of us, and you put them on that, and you're going to make them worse. And their fasting blood sugar will come up. I see it every time. So it's really about knowing where you need to be in the carbohydrate intake levels. That's why I take people through a process. But the first step of that is to start making sure that each meal that you eat has protein, fat, and fiber, slow, low carbs, so that you can start having this nice, steady blood sugar. And then, if you've been eating every 2 to 3 hours, start the spacing. So start your day with a good protein, fat, and fiber meal, which is why I love the shake, because you can't mess it up. And you want to make sure that you're getting a good protein source in the shake. I use a concentrated bone broth protein from beef or pea. I'm not a fan of whey because of the insulin response from whey, and I definitely don't want soy because of what it does to your thyroid. And then I make sure that there's low sugar. It's like 1 gram of sugar or less, and no artificial sweeteners, no fructose. Then in between your meals, you start drinking water, because so often we're not actually hungry, and you start spacing it out. And so if you've been eating every 2 to 3 hours, you're now eating every 3 to 4 hours. Then it's every 4 to 5 hours. And then all of a sudden you're going 4 to 6 hours, and you have to be reminded to eat. And that's when you've brought your body back to being a fat burner. And of course, there's things that can help along the way, like getting a good night's sleep. is huge, as you know, like just one poor night of sleep and you're more insulin resistant. You're hungrier, your serotonin's lower, you're craving more sugar. The right type of exercise can start restoring insulin sensitivity quickly and help your body use fat for fuel. So I'm not talking long endurance training that burns out your adrenals, but short burst style training or resistance training are so good for helping restore insulin sensitivity so your body can hear that sugar again and respond appropriately rather than over responding.
Yeah, I tell people, I was a vegetarian for 27 years, and I definitely was that person that I would have to carry a snack with me everywhere. It was wake up, have a bagel with tofu, cream cheese, and, decaf iced coffee with some soy creamer, and, a few hours later, granola bar or something. And then when I switched to what I advocate now for those of us with autoimmunity and thyroid, which is more of a paleo type diet, something had happened and we were out of town and it extended much later than we had anticipated. And I don't bring snacks with me all the time when I go places now like I used to. And I was like, wow, I still feel great. I mean, after 8 hours, I was like, I need to go to the store and we need to get something, but was able to go. And that's how I am now. I mean, definitely have breakfast and it's like, okay, oh wait, it's time for lunch now. And it is amazing the difference and also just not to have your whole life ruled by food like that. Well, what are some other tips? So we've, finally gotten to that. I mean, even, I acknowledge that I get sugar cravings. I mean, particularly depending on kind of what my stress levels are and my hormone levels throughout the month. What are some tips for even the rest of us that are doing everything else right, but get these sugar
Well,
cravings?
so I think the first thing is to, of course, make sure that you're eating those healthy meals that have good, clean protein and healthy fats and slow, low carbs, fiber. So that trifecta is so critical. So that's number one. So you have great blood sugar balance. Then, of course, make sure you're getting in good, a good multivitamin, mineral, antioxidant formula. So you have the help with blood sugar from chromium and magnesium and vanadium and zinc and then of course good fish oil. So all of the stuff that's going to help with blood sugar balance and help with blood sugar stability and insulin sensitivity. So those are key, but then there's a couple good tips. I love to teach people to start to get sensitive to sweet again, because one of the things that artificial sweeteners have done and high fructose corn syrup and agave have done is desensitized our sweet tooth. And again, the more sweet you eat, the more you want. And so I like to get back to savory and spicy and sea salt, which is going to enhance any flavor. One of the cool things that takes your sweet tooth away, I got this one from Donna Gates, is sour. So one of the techniques I have people do about a half hour before they're going to eat, or if they're craving sweet, is to make what I call lemonade. And it's lemon juice, a couple tablespoons, which helps lower the blood sugar response to a meal. And then you can use a little bit of a sweetener of choice, so stevia or monk fruit or xylitol or erythritol, and then some chia seeds or some fiber, because that's going to make you not as hungry. Now, a little glutamine in there. Actually, the amino acid glutamine can make your brain feel like you've had a little protein. So it helps take the sweet tooth away as well. I've taken it a step further because I've been doing some work with NutriBullet, and their NutriBullet can shave ice. So what I do now, and this to me is the ultimate easy sweet tooth one that's not going to get you in trouble and you feel like you're having this whole treat, is I will put ice in a NutriBullet with some fresh lemons or limes. I just take the rind off of them, but I still leave the white stuff on, which is the good stuff in a lemon or lime. So I'll put a couple of those and I will blend this up to make a slushy with a little bit of a sweetener. And then again, you can throw in some chia seeds or something like that, but you're literally having a shaved ice that you eat with a spoon. Awesome. The final one that you brought up that I think is hugely important for people to recognize, because I think we make life too hard on ourselves. Hey, we're hardwired to seek out sugar and fat so we can survive the famines. We all have our trigger foods. And you don't need to bring the enemy into the house and try to fool yourself. I know that if there's coffee chip ice cream in the freezer, I'm done. I'm like, it's done. And we just found these things.
That used to be my favorite ice cream.
Oh my gosh, I would never bring it home. I actually, when I was in high school, worked at an ice cream parlor to try to get over this. And I didn't. I just learned all the different ways to make it so that I'd really love it. So I would never have that. I'd never have caramel sauce. I'd never bring popcorn. You know, you look at all the stuff that you can't have because you know they're a trigger food. I can do a little dark chocolate like you. I can do a little So Delicious dairy-free coconut ice cream. And I will not stand up with a pint. That's silly. I'll sit down. I'll put it into a little tiny bowl with some little bit of dark chocolate chips. I found these stevia dark chocolate chips that I love from Lily's, and that's it. I'm done, and I'm mindful while I'm eating it. And so I think it's finding those things that work for you that aren't going to throw you into I want more, more, more. Because we just found these things at Whole Foods. They're these flourless, gluten-free, dark chocolate walnut bites. Well, forget it. I will eat, I'll eat all of them. So, and they of course have sugar. I keep thinking I need to learn how to make them without sugar. And I thought, no, I'll be eating all of them. Just like, like meringues, I will eat all of them. So it's really about knowing what will soothe that sweet tooth. And I find with a lot of people, if you're eating that trifecta of fat, fiber, and protein, and you've got good blood sugar balance, and you're managing your stress better, and sleeping well, and doing your burst training, your sweet tooth goes way down.
Do you want to kind of walk us through a typical day of like what you eat?
Sure. One of the things that I think we all get asked the most is, what do you eat? What do you eat?
Yeah.
Right? It's funny because I host a lot of events at my house for health experts. So we've got our standard go-to, which I'll talk about too, is like, how do you do a party? Because we have the stuff we have, like we're doing couple parties this week, and we kind of have our standard stuff. Last night we had roasted vegetables and grass-fed ribeyes. Super delicious. And I did have a little cup of So Delicious dairy-free butter pecan with some dark chocolate chips. And I'm talking, it was just a little thing. This morning I had a shake, and I had spinach and avocado and my chocolate protein powder and some almond milk in it. Sometimes I put some berries in it and sometimes I don't. Depends on my mood. And sometimes I like to throw in some salted pumpkin seeds on top. So it just depends on my mood. I'm always mixing things up. Sometimes I stir in nut butter. So we always keep in the freezer for our shakes. And I throw in some leaky gut. I have a leaky gut product that I put in there and some glutamine. So we have in our freezer, we have frozen spinach, we have frozen kale, we have berries, we have cherries, dark chocolate cherry, my ultimate favorite, and we have a ton of avocados. And then I have an extra fiber product, and we have chia and flax. So we're always rotating things around because we literally eat these every single day. And I have chocolate powder, chai powder, vanilla powder. So I'm mixing things up all the time. And then most days it's a salad with some kind of protein and some nuts. And then I usually make a salad dressing out of lemon juice and macadamia nuts, which I'm hugely a fan of. If I'm super lazy, which happens, we always keep some sliced grass-fed roast beef and sliced turkey breast in the fridge. And then I'm kind of a paleo plus. I do legumes. And so we do either hummus, or I found this stuff from Kite Hill called almond ricotta cheese. And so I'll put that into turkey and roll that up. And sometimes I'll do that with lettuce wraps, and I'll put in whatever leftover veggies and do roll-ups of that. So that's my lazy lunch that I do. And my other lazy lunch is just brown rice, avocado, salmon, sushi from Whole Foods. And I don't eat a lot of brown rice. I tend to eat more wild rice and pumpkin and squashes and legumes, but I'll eat a little bit of that. And parties, what we do, because I always we get all the health, we call them the health mafia over, and most are more paleo, some are vegan, no one eats gluten or dairy or soy, so it's always fun to try and explain this if we have like a chef coming in. So I usually do it myself because it's just easier. And so we tend to do brown rice sushi as appetizers with rice chips and hummus and guacamole and crudité. So that's always all over the place. Dessert is So Delicious dairy-free ice creams, berries, and dark chocolate. And then I have these dark chocolate coconut bars that I have that I cut up and put around. And then it's funny, for the main course, we do the stuff that's near my house called Cardiff Crack. So some meat, some chicken, and some wild salmon. So we'll barbecue that. And we used to have vegetables. We'd make a salad and we'd make some squash and stuff. And all everybody does is stand up and eat the protein. So I finally just went, you know what, fine. So we have the crudité to begin with guacamole. And I just find everyone's just going to stand up and eat the protein. I know them. So I stopped even bothering. I thought we could actually just serve wine and meat and dark chocolate and they'd probably all be happy.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right. There's the reality.
Yeah, that's whenever we do staff retreats and stuff like that. I'm always like, okay, what out of this am I okay taking home? Because I know that this is not all going to get eaten. So, what are things that I'm okay, eating and having in my house afterwards?
Yeah. So that's the stuff that everybody will eat. And I've just kind of whittled it down to that, going, I don't need all the extra stuff because no one will eat it anyway. So it doesn't matter. And I always start the day. I do bulletproof coffee, but I don't use the ghee or coconut oil, the MCTs, unless I'm taping. If I've got a big day of taping, then I go full bulletproof. Otherwise, I just use the beans because I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So those are the only beans I can use. But I'm
Oh, yeah, I can't.
a big coffee fan.
I can't even do decaf.
Oh, how sad. And I drink ice green tea. So during the day, I actually have one here I drink. I drink ice green tea and then I drink these things from my girlfriend.
Kavita.
The Kavitas, they're my sodas. I'm addicted to them. So that's strawberry acai. You have to be careful because some of them, she actually emailed me and goes, be careful because some of these ones have more sugar. Here are the ones to drink. So, and if we're having a party, because people always ask, and what about alcohol? If we're having a party, I use biodynamic wine from Benzinger, who one of the owners used to be a nutrition coach for me. And we actually get Kavita, mojito lime Kavitas, and put tequila in it.
Awesome.
So there's how the health expert.
Well, here in Texas, we just have a Topo Chico, which is a soda water that everybody loves, and typically vodka in that with with lime or something. 3 kind of take home points for everybody.
So here's the thing. I think when we look at changing things, we get overwhelmed because we think we have to do everything at once. Little hinges swing big doors. The biggest thing that you can do, whether you've got hypothyroidism, diabetes, or you just want to have great, steady, sustained energy, is lower your sugar impact. And that's something that you do by, number 1, first seeing where all the sugar is sneaking into your diet. Number 2, start looking at how you can taper down your impact. Again, something like trading the pasta for spaghetti squash. And number 3, really making sure that you're hitting the trifecta with your meals of protein, fat, and fiber, because that blood sugar control from that will go a long way for helping set you up for not having the issues with thyroid and heart disease and diabetes, because it really starts with controlling blood sugar.
Great. Wonderful information, JJ Virgin.